they started it is absolutely a good excuse. Say someone just starts wailing on you and you give a few punches back, and by the end of it you're both a bit fucked. Now why you both get punished equally? Honestly, whoever started the shit should get the most of the punishment, and there's this stupid stigma behind it because people say the phrase is childish or something stupid, but it's such a valid excuse for fights or arguments. Exactly. Prime example is if you're in school or something, and somebody keeps on hitting you, they're not showing any sign of stopping, and nobody, not even a teacher or supervisor, is helping. If you decide to hit back once, the school now has to punish both of you. Sometimes equally. Which doesn't make any sense. In the real world, if someone attacks you, and you try to stop them by using violence, you're protected by a statute of self-defense, so I don't know how schools came to the conclusion that hitting someone back is put on the same pedestal as instigating a fight. Totally misleading, and could get someone killed in the real world if they don't know they're protected by law to hit back. If they started it was good enough for Entente writing the Treaty of Versailles, it's good enough for me. Even hockey has 2 minutes for instigating. Know what's funny? From a legal perspective, they started it is absolutely valid. If someone starts punching you or physically threatens you, and you react with physical force, the law is on your side, in most states. Basically, parents/teachers/principals who teach kids that they started it isn't a valid argument, are fucking stupid and are teaching kids the lessons. Yes, there are two completely different things happening. 1. Instigator is having some state of anger. Anger is projected onto recipient, who has no part in it until the projection starts. Recipient does not feel any animosity towards instigator until instigator projects their anger through words or physical actions. The difference is, instigator is already on a roll, while the recipient would have no part in the conflict hadn't it been for the instigator. The instigator would probably have ended up in conflict regardless, because they were already on a roll. Everyone responds emotionally to attacks, verbal or otherwise. So the instigator definitely carries a heavier burden than the recipient. The instigator must take responsibility for both the instigation and their actions after the instigation, while the recipient only needs to take responsibility for their response. One has a bigger responsibility, and people on the outside need to recognize that. Otherwise they will be indirectly enabling bullying by calling it equal. He started it is ironically totally viable in self-defense shootings. Welcome to self-defense. To a certain level, you're correct. They started it is a valid excuse for fights and arguments that you didn't escalate, but it also doesn't convey enough information to actually mean anything. Imagine this scenario: someone calls you a coward. You step up into their face and say that again. They push you and call you a coward again. You punch them in retaliation. In this, you can say they started it, but you kept escalating the situation, and threw the first punch. For reasons like this, they started it doesn't mean much. It just means, from my point of view, they started the series of events that led to the situation. Meanwhile, for your example, if instead of they started it you said they attacked me out of the blue and my only choice was to defend myself, that relays actually what happened, why they started it and why you continued it. But simply saying they started it just says blame them, not me, with no extra info. They started it is a valid excuse. If a cop just starts beating on you, it is police brutality. If you hit the cop first, then you started it. And no, this isn't trying to make this political or anti-anything. My old high school had a zero-tolerance policy, meaning that fighting back would get you in just as much trouble as the assailant. Obviously, this is a ridiculous rule since you're essentially asking the victim to either just lay down and take it or risk being disciplined. When I was in 10th grade, I saw a senior attack one of my classmates without provocation during lunch. Because of the stupid zero-tolerance policy, essentially all the classmate could do to defend himself was shield his head and lie face down on a table as this older dude relentlessly pummeled him. As Up has already pointed out, it should be perfectly acceptable for the victim to retaliate in self-defense and subsequently place the onus on the instigator in situations like this. If schools or other authority figures disagree, then they should expect to be liable for any injuries incurred by the victim as a result of their zero-tolerance policy. Incidentally, the guy in my anecdote actually wound up with a concussion since the senior was punching him in the back of the head. Schools be like, walk away from the situation. Tell them to stop. Did you just try to defend yourself? You should have just said no. I don't know if you've seen that one meme getting robbed. Just say no. They cannot legally take your belongings without your permission, but damn, it works here. I feel like it's usually said in cases of escalation. For example, Billy calls Bob stupid, Bob hits Billy, Bob is admonished and responds, but he started it. Depends on the extent of the retaliation. For example, if someone starts it with a shove, it's not okay to retaliate with knife. They started it - childish, lacks responsibility. They sounded the horn of combat, and I had to answer. - authoritative, spreads blame equally but still acknowledges that you were the aggrieved person. I got choked out in high school once and passed out, but we both got suspended because I got into a fight. Dude literally just came up behind me and choked me. Agreed. I feel like it's more of a policy on school grounds because they don't want to put in the work to actually investigate what happened. I think the problem here rises from the use of the word, excuse. That word is what sounds childish. If someone starts wailing on you, the explanation of why you beat the shit out of them was that they hit you first. It's not really an excuse as much as it's an explanation, it's the reason for your use of force. There was a posting a couple of days ago of a video of a guy threatening a store with a knife and then dropping their pants and mooning everyone in the place. A customer walked in while this was going on, he saw the knife threat in passing the window, and decked the guy immediately. No charges were filed by the police on the guy who basically assaulted the guy wielding the knife. The knife wielding wasn't an excuse to deck the guy, it was the reason/explanation why the customer laid him out. The customer needed no excuse to take out a guy wielding a knife. In other words,